The story begins in a clinic where a doctor informs a young lady named Laurette Blanche that she does not have a terminal illness that can cause her death. Previously, she'd been told that she only had 3 months to live, but it turns out that it was all a misdiagnosis. Laurette starts to panic because she thought she had been living her life doing whatever she wanted. She ends up meeting the greatest swordsman and warhead of the Empire, who tells her that he will find her wherever she is. Laurette's mind goes blank, and she thinks that it would have been better if the doctor had just told her she was going to die. 3 months ago. Laurette wasn't feeling well, so she went to see a doctor secretly. She explained the symptoms she had, and the doctor said it was a rare, incurable disease that only a few people have. Unfortunately, it has a mortality rate of 98%. To make it even more dramatic, he added that she's going to die in 3 months. Shocked by the diagnosis, she thought to make a list of things she wanted to do before she dies. We can say a bucket list. Laurette asked her maid, Anne, what she wanted to do before she died. Anne was surprised at first, but then replied that she couldn't imagine leaving Laurette alone to die, as Laurette couldn't even brush her hair well by herself. Laurette was moved by her words, but then Anne added that she wanted to indulge in a variety of cakes. However, the maid then suggested that Laurette go eat dinner with her family, even though Laurette didn't want to because she didn't get along with them. Her father, the Duke of Blanche, and her mother, the Duchess Blanche, were trying to sell her off to a rich old marquis because they were in a large debt. Laurette felt incredibly sad and foolish for pretending to know nothing, despite knowing everything. The parents were elated to see her brother show up, Rayan Blanche, who had magical and succession classes and monopolized all the support, while Laurette received neither support nor education, but was only tasked with assisting him with office work. Rayan asked her why she was there, and Laurette replied, "Am I not a part of this family?" She then informed him that the family's magic teacher was upset with him, and that she felt she was more capable and talented than her brother. But then, Rayan did something cruel to his sister. He intentionally spilled wine on her head and insisted that he wouldn't finish the meal unless she left. Laurette's mother told her to go back to her room and clean up. Feeling defeated, Laurette realized that she didn't want to live and die in that kind of environment, and decided that since she was going to die soon anyway, she would do whatever she wanted. She started to write her bucket list. 1. Buy Anne as many cakes as she wants. 2. Being independent, save money. 3. Call off the engagement with Marquess Segreb in proper manner. 4. Date handsome person just for 3 months. 5. Travel to the west, which Rayan always spoke about. She completed the no one on her bucket list in no time. On the way back home, suddenly, the carriage she was in got stuck in a hole. Peeking out to see if anyone could help, but Anne told her to get back in and explained that it was Duke Candle's carriage behind them, so they had to protect themselves. Laurette remembered that the Candle family was the most powerful family in the Empire, and the Duke himself was called a monster. Then a man approached and helped to release the stuck wheel of Laurette's carriage. He was holding the carriage with one hand only. Stunned by his strength, Laurette thought that all of the coachmen of the Candle family must have been as strong as him, and she silently thanked him in her mind. Back in the manor, she was planning on taking a rest, but Marquess Segreb came unexpectedly. He spoke disrespectfully to Laurette. "I don't even want to tell you here." "Ew, kinda creepy." Laurette thought of completing bucket list item number 3, which was to call off the engagement with Marquis Segreb, but she was having trouble doing it properly. The Blanche family was known for producing great wizards, and Laurette was no exception. She was born with incredible talent, but unfortunately, she never had the opportunity to learn magic properly. Her brother Rayan was always jealous of her natural abilities. However, Laurette was determined to improve her skills and secretly learned from Rayan's teacher behind their backs. The teacher realized that Rayan wasn't as talented as Laurette, so he began teaching her magic in his spare time. Wow, she made the Marquis upside down. Laurette told him that she had no intention of marrying him and therefore wanted to call off the engagement. She further added that she despised people like him who evaluated others with money. Shocked by what happened, Duke Blanche released Marquis Segreb from Laurette's magic. Marquis Segreb felt disgraced and told them that he would never forget it. The Duke tried to calm him down, but it didn't work. Laurette's father seemed furious with her, slapped her in the face, and told her that she was determined to keep the dukedom in debt. But she replied that her family had no affection for her and sold her to enjoy wealth and entertainment, and what she got was a slap. Her mother added that everything she wore and ate was because she was part of the family, and she had to take responsibility. Laurette replied that was why she had helped them out by being her mother's bookkeeper, acting as the administrator for her father's work, and also taking care of Rayan's estate. Yet her father said he would pay off the debt soon and get her married. Still in a rage, her father kicked her out and said he would remove Laurette from the family registry. Her mother tried to calm him down. Laurette was disappointed in what her family did to her, though she had never tried to go against them before. She took a bow and asked permission to leave. Rayan arrived and tried to insult her using his magic, but he had no idea how strong she was. "Let's bury him alive, girl!" She ended up leaving the house and completed 3 out of 5 on her bucket list. Now, she aimed to complete the remaining 2. Imagine she was going to meet a handsome man with a lot of dating experience, so she could date with ease. First things first, even though she had brought some money with her, she knew she needed to earn more to live an easier life. So she decided to offer her skills as a purification wizard, which she was best at. Purification magic is less efficient than healing magic, and is unpopular due to its high mana requirements. However, Laurette had no mana shortage. Unfortunately, the healing wizard had already taken all the available jobs, leaving her without any work. Feeling discouraged, she walked slowly without being aware of her surroundings, and her bag was stolen. The burglars had been stalking her since she offered her skills to the mercenaries, and overheard that she was a purification wizard. They thought she was not a threat, but little did they know that she could burn them all. Laurette chased after them, shouting for help. Hearing a young lady's cries for help, a stranger turned his head to see what was happening. Wow! It was really a god masterpiece! The man glared at the burglars, his presence itself already making them intimidated. The man smelled like a rotten corpse, and they realized that he was the monster Duke of Candle, which terrified them even more. The Duke took them down in no time, returned the bag to Laurette, who was astonished by what she saw. Duke Candle, a general who won the war that no one has ever won, was also called a warmonger for his brutal nature. As she stared at his face, Laurette noticed he was so handsome despite all the rumors. Although he smelled a bit repulsive, it was nothing compared to his beauty. She wondered if he had dated many girls with that face, but he was famous for being a cold-hearted person, so maybe he hadn't dated anyone yet. Seeing Laurette trembling, Duke Candle thought that she was afraid of him because of the curse on him, the curse that caused him to smell like a rotten corpse. Out of nowhere, Laurette pulled his sleeve, asking him if he had a girlfriend. She also asked him to date her for 3 months and told him that she liked his face. It was on her bucket list, number 4, to date a handsome guy for 3 months. Whoa, what a straightforward girl! Awkward with the situation, Laurette introduced herself and asked for his name. Surprised by her action, Duke Candle was startled and said his name was Azrahan Candle. Laurette was astonished by his nice voice and told him that his low voice was so charming. It had been 20 years since someone called him by his name, so Azrahan thought it was a prank. Laurette kept asking him to date her for 3 months. But Azrahan replied that she shouldn't joke around and asked her if she wasn't afraid of him after seeing he killed many people. He then left her and took a glance back, thinking that it was a prank. In fact, Laurette was stunned by him and thought that he was so cool, charismatic and attractive that it even made her more excited. In a bar, while thinking about how to meet Azrahan again, Laurette overheard someone talking about Duke Candle looking for a purification wizard. She approached the group and asked for more information about the rumor. They explained that Duke Candle was cursed, causing him to smell like a rotting corpse, and was in search of a purification wizard to lift the curse. However, since there were not many purification wizards around, Azrahan was struggling to find a capable one. Laurette realized that she had to go to the tiger's den to catch the tiger. A week later, Laurette found Azrahan at an information guild and apologized for her previous behavior. She suggested they start anew with an employer-employee relationship. Azrahan was surprised that Laurette wasn't afraid of him despite his reputation. Laurette introduced herself as a purification wizard and offered to break the curse that made him smell like a rotting corpse. In exchange, she asked for food and accommodation. Laurette presented a contract for Azrahan to sign. Having doubts about Laurette's offerings, Azrahan threatened her that if it was a prank, she wouldn't live long enough to see tomorrow's sunrise. Laurette was a bit intimidated, but since she could die anytime soon, she had nothing to be afraid of. She grabbed Azrahan's hand and started to purify him right away to prove that she wasn't lying. It consumed more mana than Laurette thought, as the curse was too strong and she lost all her strength. After the purification, she told Azrahan to check his hand. Azrahan thought he shouldn't have any hope that it would work since he knew what kind of curse it was. Wow! A miracle happened? Finally, someone can purify his curse. He definitely wouldn't let her go. Suddenly, Laurette stumbled and fell on Azrahan. So then the contract was signed by both parties. Upon waking up in an unfamiliar place, Laurette asked Azrahan where they were. He informed her that they were in the Candle Dukedom, as it was written in their contract that he had to provide her with food and accommodation. Laurette was ecstatic to hear that and couldn't believe that he had finally signed the contract. She grabbed Azrahan's hands, but he was confused by her actions. Laurette then asked him to call her by her nickname Ree, but Azrahan stood up and told her that he was just checking on her and had already moved her luggage there. He confirmed that she was okay and then planned to go. Laurette seemed sad that Azrahan had put up a wall and thought that she wasn't his type, but then she convinced herself that preferences can always change. Azrahan got a sudden chill from the way she stared at him, causing him to immediately move out of the room. Laurette was so happy to see Azrahan's handsome face as soon as she woke up that she accidentally said it out loud, making Azrahan, who was still standing in front of her chamber, blush all over his face. So cute! In Azrahan's workroom, Laurette was staring at him, admiring his beauty. Azrahan asked her if she had something to tell him, and she quickly answered that she had been waiting for him to finish his work and notice her. She asked him to eat together. Startled by her request, Azrahan told her that she must have a strong stomach. Confused by his statement, she asked why he talked about her stomach. Then he explained about the curse he got from the powerful witch since he was 7, that even killing the witch wouldn't break the curse. The bandage he wore had a magic spell to prevent odors. Azrahan thought Laurette would run away because she might find it disgusting. But Laurette said something unexpected. She said she would make sure to break the curse. Judging by his look, he might have been moved by what she said. As Azrahan thought about why Laurette wasn't afraid of him like everyone else who avoided him due to his unpleasant smell, he realized that if she continued to care for him with love, he would become even more greedy for her attention. That's what she wanted, dude! As Laurette purified Azrahan's other hand, he became concerned that she may have overdone it, so he stopped her. Laurette reassured him that she was only checking the condition of his hand and mentioned that there was still some purification magic on it. It appeared that the magic was effectively purifying his body. However, purification can only be performed on one body part at a time, so if one part is being purified, other parts must wait until it is complete. Laurette reassured Azrahan that she would take responsibility and he shouldn't worry about it. Azrahan then asked Laurette why she wasn't afraid of him. She replied with a mischievous smile, saying that there was no reason to be afraid of him. She added that just because he nearly lost the war, it didn't mean he didn't deserve to be praised as a national hero, and that he was the first sword of the empire. Compliments were what he deserved. She also stated that the person who should be feared was the one who cursed him, not the other way around. Azrahan was stunned by her words. Laurette touched his face and reassured him that she was not afraid of him, but rather afraid that he wouldn't date her. Feeling embarrassed, Azrahan asked Laurette to let go of him, his cheeks burning with a crimson blush. He quickly promised to meet her for dinner at 7 and then hastily made his way out of the room. Laurette was so happy to hear that and thought that Azrahan had promised her a meal just because she had touched his cheek. The head butler, Halstein, greeted Laurette and asked her if she had already met Azrahan. Before, Laurette asked Halstein where she could find Azrahan, and he kindly directed her to him. Laurette then informed Halstein that she and Azrahan were going to have dinner together. Halstein, who had been with the family for a long time, was delighted to see Azrahan have company for dinner after so long. As a gesture of goodwill, Halstein prepared a book called The Ultimate Dating Guide for Azrahan. However, Azrahan was confused by it and thought he already knew table manners from his childhood. He was afraid that Laurette would laugh at his improper manners, but he soon realized that the book Halstein had given him was a dating guide and had nothing to do with table manners. Azrahan told Halstein that the book was useless, but the butler insisted that he had never been more useful in the 27 years of serving him. Halstein then attempted to give Azrahan some advice based on the guidebook, but Azrahan ran away to avoid hearing more. As Azrahan entered the dining room, he saw Laurette waiting for him with a cheerful expression. He wondered why she was so happy just for dinner. When he sat down, Laurette took her food and moved next to Azrahan. She then told him that she wanted to revise their contract because she felt that the payment was insufficient. In the revised contract, she added an obligation for them to have at least one meal together every day and to go out twice a week. Azrahan was shocked by Laurette's request and asked her what she meant by going out. Laurette replied with a smile, saying that she meant going on dates. Of course! A date? Azrahan couldn't believe that was the only thing Laurette wanted to add. He was afraid that she might run away later, thinking that he didn't pay her properly. To make sure that Laurette would stay until all the curses were completely purified, Azrahan added one more clause to the contract stating that Laurette had to accept any consequences if she disappeared before completing the purification process. Although Laurette was already planning to purify all the curses, the addition to the contract made her a little bit scared. But in the end, they signed the new revised contract. Laurette then asked Azrahan to go on a picnic with her, but he wondered why she was in such a hurry. Of course, she would do anything to win Azrahan's love. A few days later, Laurette's mana had already fully recovered, and she couldn't wait to purify Azrahan's curse. She went to Azrahan's workroom and saw something dazzling. It was Azrahan's face. She told him that his face was like a never-setting sun. It was truly magnificent. Azrahan responded to Laurette's request for a picnic, telling her to go in the afternoon when it was warmer. She got close to him and quickly purified his hand as the curse was not as strong as before. Azrahan still couldn't believe it had really happened. Azrahan was worried about Laurette, since she had lost a lot of mana before. However, it turned out that he had worried for nothing. Laurette reminded Azrahan to go on the picnic since she had already purified the curse for the day. In the garden, Laurette was shivering and Azrahan remarked that it was still cold in the morning. Laurette used that as an excuse to lean on him. "Hey, you little devil!" She said that she would be warm if someone gave her his coat, but Azrahan declined. Not because he was rude, but because he thought the smell of the curse would be worse if he took off the coat. Laurette added that she actually didn't want Azrahan to catch a cold. While preparing the spot to sit, Laurette asked Azrahan to come and sit closer to her, but he didn't give her a chance. Laurette thought that Azrahan might have been hurt in his previous relationships, or he might not like her. She believed that being more expressive about their feelings is necessary. As for Azrahan, he felt awkward sitting in his garden, and it never crossed his mind to do that. Laurette asked Azrahan what his favorite food was, but he said he didn't have anything in particular. She wondered how he had been living his life all this time. She then handed him a sandwich. As Azrahan ate, he wondered if Laurette had noticed the smell of the curse or if she was holding it for him. Watching him eat seemed to fascinate Laurette. She then attempted to use her magic to create something from the flowers. She ended up making a wreath flower crown that fell on Azrahan's head, making him look stunning. However, Azrahan asked Laurette not to tease him. Laurette explained that she wasn't teasing him and asked him to give the flower crown back to her. But as they tried to grab the wreath, it flew away and fell into the pond, causing both of them to fall into the water. Touching Laurette's hair, Azrahan asked what she would do if she caught a cold. Laurette replied that she wouldn't catch a cold since she was healthy. However, Azrahan decided to carry her back to her room. Laurette complained that the date was too short, and it didn't count. It turned out that she had a fever, and Azrahan told her he had to go to the palace and had already called a priest to check on her. Laurette said, "Okay." As Azrahan left the room, he thought Laurette had become more mature and expected her to beg him to stay. However, she didn't, and this surprised him. On his way to the palace, Azrahan's carriage passed the priest's carriage, and he saw a long hair, which made him relieved as he thought the priest was a woman. In Laurette's room, the priest asked if she was the patient. She was stunned by his appearance. He was a beautiful man, another of God's masterpieces. "Wait, he's definitely not a woman, Azrahan. You're in danger." The priest introduced himself as Doha from the Altheon Temple and then began the treatment, which may have been misunderstood since it required him to get his face close to her. While he treated her, he asked Laurette why she stayed in that place. Laurette replied with displeasure and asked him what was wrong with it. The priest apologized for his rude question and explained that he had a blunt personality, which led to him being bullied in the temple. He further revealed that, as a junior, he was often ignored. However, Laurette didn't pay attention to what Doha said because she was distracted by the scar on his beautiful face. The treatment was finished, and Laurette was already feeling better. Despite having so much mana, she couldn't treat herself. Laurette asked Doha to come closer and she treated his scar. Amazed by what Laurette did, Doha asked if she was a healing wizard. Laurette answered that she was a kind of them and didn't correct him that she was a purification wizard, since both types of magic worked almost the same way. Doha offered her a job as a healing wizard and promised to pay her a lot, but Laurette thought a junior priest like him wouldn't earn much. She preferred to stay by Azrahan's side, so she rejected the offer. However, Doha insisted and said that sometime later it would be okay. Laurette agreed, but only if it was later. As a token of gratitude, Doha said he would continue her treatment for free, but he would always pay her for any future treatment she gave him. Laurette made a quick decision and said yes. Since they had gotten closer, Doha asked Laurette to become friends with him. Laurette thought she had never had a friend before, so it would be great to have one before she died. "Stay away from her, Doha." Back in the temple. When Doha returned to the temple, a fellow priest greeted him and referred to him as High Priest Michael Doffelion. "Oh, so you were the High Priest Michael Doffelion. That's interesting, I didn't realize." Another priest warned Doha that he could get into trouble if someone who was on the path to becoming a pope kept wandering around. The priest then noticed that the scar on Doha's forehead was gone. Doha explained that a healing wizard in Duke Candle's place had healed him. The red-haired priest was shocked to learn that there was someone whose mana was as strong as Doha's. Doha said they needed to find out more about this healing wizard. Inside the carriage, Azrahan was struggling with a dilemma about whether to go or not. In the end, he decided against it, but even the coachman was worried that Azrahan was planning to harm someone. Despite this, Azrahan couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to go. As Azrahan entered, he was surprised to be greeted by Laurette. He tried to avoid her and asked about her cold, but Laurette reassured him that she was feeling much better and grabbed his hand, placing it on her forehead to show him. Flustered by her actions, Azrahan walked away, telling her that she didn't need to greet him like that. However, Laurette confessed that she missed him and asked if he had been thinking about her too. Azrahan denied it. She then showed him a ticket to a famous play and asked him out on a date. She had already purchased the premium seats for them, but Azrahan declined, thinking that people would avoid him and look at him with disgust. He felt that Laurette was taking his curse lightly and needed to explain his situation to her. Azrahan asked Laurette if she was afraid of him and explained that the title of Warmonger was given to him because hundreds of lives had been lost under his command. It was natural for people to be scared of him. This news may have frightened Laurette a little, but it did not mean that she would run away. Suddenly, Laurette smacked Azrahan and confronted him about his hesitation. She reminded him that she had already dared to attack the Duke of Candle, held his hand without his consent multiple times, and even called him by his name. Despite all of this, she asked if Azrahan still wanted to kill her and demanded a yes or no answer. Laurette also advised Azrahan to not pay attention to what others think and focus on what he truly wants to do. After giving him an ultimatum to provide an answer by the next morning, she walked away, warning that she would find someone else if he didn't respond. Azrahan was still in shock and unable to respond, leaving him blushing. "Yeah," with that happy smiley face, Laurette successfully asked him out. Laurette pretended to fall down, and Azrahan caught her just in time. This was exactly what Laurette had hoped for. Azrahan told her not to hold his hand secretly, but Laurette asked him to at least pretend not to notice it. However, he refused to do so. Seeing a lot of people gathered, Azrahan began to tremble, which made Laurette think that he was nervous. She then pulled his hand and reassured him that there would only be the two of them in the premium seat, so Azrahan didn't need to worry. After watching the show, Laurette was discussing with Azrahan about a player who caught her attention. But the way Azrahan imagined the man was different from what Laurette saw. Laurette excused herself to go to the bathroom and asked Azrahan to wait in the carriage. As she was walking, someone called out to Laurette from behind. It was Marquis Segreb. Laurette was ready to defend herself, but suddenly she was caught by the Marquis' men and couldn't cast any magic. However, Marquis' men holding Laurette suddenly fell apart as Azrahan appeared. Marquis Segreb was enraged, but Azrahan's glare intimidated him. Laurette stopped Azrahan from killing Marquis Segreb and took his hand and dashed through the exit door. As they sat in the carriage, Azrahan wondered if Laurette was afraid of him and considered ending their employer-employee relationship. But to his surprise, Laurette commented that he was much cooler than the main character on the show. She saw it as a form of self-defense. The next day, Laurette developed a fever again. Doha came to treat her. During the treatment, Laurette asked if there was any possibility for an incurable disease to be treated by divine power. However, Doha explained that the disease was named incurable for a reason. Laurette was devastated, thinking that she would surely die. But then Doha revealed that the disease could be cured by someone with holy power equal to that of a pope. In despair, Laurette wondered how she could ever meet a pope. Little did she know that Doha was actually the next pope. Doha used his holy power to analyze the mana in Laurette's body and discovered that it was severely twisted, which was a rare and serious condition that could lead to death if left untreated. However, he also realized that Laurette would not die from it, but instead suffer from a chronic illness. Doha offered to provide regular treatment to Laurette, and she was surprised but accepted the offer. He initiated the treatment by holding her body and placing his forehead on hers. After completing the treatment, Doha mentioned that if Laurette appreciated his help, she could assist him as well. Doha showed Laurette a wound on his arm, and when asked how he got it, he evaded the question. Doha noticed that his wound had completely healed and was impressed by Laurette's abilities. He gave Laurette a jewel as payment and explained that he owned a mine. Laurette was delighted with the easy money and asked Doha not to go to other wizards. Doha agreed, secretly determined to keep her by his side. A little bit creepy. The next day, Laurette sought out Azrahan but was told by Halstein the butler that he was still asleep after returning late the night before. Halstein offered to wake Azrahan up, and Laurette accepted, heading to his spacious bedroom. There, she woke Azrahan and told him she needed to purify his upper body, explaining that it worked better with direct skin contact. Azrahan was initially confused, but Laurette teased him and offered to remove his clothes for him, causing him to become flustered. Eventually, he removed his clothes, asking if he should also remove the bandage. Laurette confirmed that direct skin contact was necessary. As Azrahan removed his bandages, Laurette was shocked to see the curse. She began the process of purifying it, but warned Azrahan it would take time as it was a powerful curse. Azrahan blushed and became flustered by Laurette's proximity. Suddenly, Laurette collapsed from exhaustion due to her depleted mana, having treated a priest the previous day. Azrahan asked if Laurette treated the priest the same way she was treating him. Azrahan then realized he had nothing to worry about since the priest was a woman. As Laurette fainted, she asked Azrahan when they could go on another date, leaving him speechless. Later on, Laurette searched the manor for Azrahan, but he was nowhere to be found. She confided in Doha about how Azrahan seemed to be avoiding her. Laurette and Doha had grown closer and were now discussing her love life. Doha then suggested that Laurette make Azrahan jealous, but she realized she didn't have anyone else to use for this. Doha moved closer to her and reminded her that he was also a man. Don't, Doha! So he was planning to treat Laurette with that kind of gesture. She had previously considered Doha's advice to make Azrahan jealous, but now she realized it wasn't fair to deceive him. Laurette imagined how it would feel if Azrahan begged her not to leave him. She decided to go against Doha's suggestion and told him that she was going to try to charm Azrahan by herself. Late at night, Azrahan snuck inside and was met with Laurette's fierce gaze. She reminded him of the contract that stated they were to go out twice a week. Azrahan had been avoiding her because he felt strange around her. Laurette then changed her tone and said that she didn't want to disturb him since he must have been busy, and that she would go out with someone else. Azrahan was left speechless. Laurette retreated to her room and began to ponder her bucket list. She only wanted to create good memories before she died, but it seemed as though she was a burden to Azrahan. Doha prepared to meet Laurette, but his subordinate suggested taking her to the temple instead, but he knew it would be difficult to persuade her. Doha realized Laurette was a skilled healing wizard and began to scheme ways to win her over. As he contemplated how to seduce her, Laurette unexpectedly appeared in his carriage and invited him to accompany her on an outing, declaring that the plan to make Azrahan jealous had begun. After indulging in numerous desserts, they strolled around. Laurette was intrigued by Doha's situation despite his considerable wealth. As she believed he owned a mine, he still worked as a healer. Doha explained that he wasn't accustomed to going out much, but sometimes he had to take the job when a senior ordered a junior to do so. Laurette was touched by his sense of duty. She then promised to avenge him by burning their clothes or hanging them on a tree. Laurette was looking at a brooch that might be perfect for Azrahan when Doha surprised her. She suggested to Doha the accessories that might suit him as well, and told him that she was going to ask the price. While waiting for Laurette, a senior priest approached Doha, demanding an apology and belittling him. Though tempted to teach the priest a lesson, Doha decided against it to avoid revealing his identity to Laurette and the crowd. Instead, he apologized, but then fire suddenly appeared on the priest's clothes. Laurette pulled Doha away. As she had told him before, she promised to punish those who wronged him. Doha found Laurette's determination amusing, and even more intriguing, which only fueled his desire for her. Meanwhile, at Candle's Manor, Azrahan seethed with anger. Learning that the person accompanying Laurette was the male priest, Azrahan considered it none of his concern if they were involved romantically, since all he needed was Laurette's assistance in breaking his curse. He believed that no one could possibly love a monster like himself, and that Laurette was likely only taking pity on him. After some time had passed, Azrahan invited Laurette to share a meal with him. He expressed that it had been a long time, but Laurette's response was cold. Laurette had followed Doha's advice and was pleased to see that her plan to make Azrahan jealous was working. Seeing Azrahan's handsome face left Laurette breathless. Azrahan surprised her by asking how she had been, and she responded that she was doing well. Laurette mentioned that Doha would be arriving in the afternoon and reassured Azrahan that he had nothing to worry about. Azrahan initially questioned if there was anything to be worried about, but then Laurette asked if he was jealous. Azrahan told Laurette that he wasn't bothered by her spending time with Doha, as long as it didn't interfere with the purification process. Disappointed, Laurette lost her appetite and asked to leave. When Doha arrived, she informed him that the plan to make Azrahan jealous had failed. Doha had already anticipated this. He used this opportunity to console Laurette and win her affection. Not a chance. As Laurette noticed Doha's glasses, which made him look like a librarian, she complimented him on how well they suited him. Doha simply replied that he felt like wearing them that day. Okay, time for the explanation. Delphalion was using his foresight, a skill possessed only by the strongest and most superior of believers. It was even a crucial factor in the selection of the Pope. However, Doha used this ability for personal reasons to predict his luck for the day. He didn't even care if the superiors criticized him for it. Doha drew Laurette nearer and inquired if he could start the treatment. Just wait for it. In Azrahan's workroom, Halstein confronted Azrahan about how his actions were hurting Laurette. Halstein understood that Azrahan may struggle to recognize his emotions since he has been isolated for so long. Despite Halstein's advice to follow his heart, Azrahan denied any attachment to anyone due to his curse. But Azrahan's curiosity led him to peek into Laurette's room, where he found Doha with her. Azrahan became furious and demanded Doha leave, but Laurette explained that they were just friends who helped each other. Azrahan realized his jealousy and admitted to himself that he had feelings for Laurette. When Laurette asked if she could go for a drink with Doha, Azrahan asked her not to go. Azrahan confessed to Laurette that he had strong feelings for her, and that he couldn't stop thinking about her even when they were apart. Finally, my sweet little kitten. He admitted to feeling jealous when he saw her with other man and confessed that he wanted her for himself. Azrahan was confused by his unfamiliar feelings and didn't know how to handle them. He reminded Laurette of the proposal to date, and she was thrilled to accept it and hugged him. Azrahan was amazed to feel such strong affection for the first time in his life. As Laurette thought she would enjoy the moment for 3 months and then leave with no regrets, Azrahan thought he wanted to renovate the garden because he hoped Laurette would stay with him forever. Laurette and Azrahan discussed their couple's to-do list. Azrahan almost saw Laurette's bucket list, but she stopped him just in time. Phew! As they went through the list, Azrahan became jealous when he saw that Laurette had already had fun with Doha in the city. Laurette found Azrahan's jealousy cute and expressed her desire to do all the items on the list with him. Azrahan then prepared a carriage and took Laurette to the best boutique in the empire, promising to buy her every dress and accessory she liked. They ended up buying everything, and Laurette playfully poked fun at Azrahan for not answering when she asked if she looked pretty in a dress. Azrahan eventually told her she was pretty. Got carried away, Laurette demanded a kiss from him. Just as their lips were about to meet, the coachman interrupted by asking if he should move the luggage. Azrahan got flustered and ran away, leaving Laurette confused. After a few days, there had been no progress in their relationship since Azrahan ran away when they tried to kiss. Azrahan had improved his gestures of attention by doing small things like pulling out chairs, but Laurette didn't have much time left and couldn't waste any more time. So, she seduced Azrahan by asking him to feed her. As he fed her, she moved closer and embraced him, telling him that he was the best. Azrahan's heart was racing, but suddenly he stood up and said he had some documents to take care of, and he left despite Laurette's protests. She wondered if Azrahan only wanted a platonic love relationship with her. Platonic love is a deep and emotional connection between two people that doesn't involve any romantic feelings or physical attraction. Azrahan seemed unapproachable, but Laurette was determined to make progress in their relationship. Laurette visited Azrahan a few days later for a purification ritual, but she had a secret plan in mind. She wanted to test Azrahan's aversion to physical touch and hoped to work on making him more comfortable with it. Azrahan was ready to be purified and Laurette began the process. However, Azrahan's impure thoughts made the process difficult for him. Suddenly, Laurette became dizzy and asked Azrahan for a hug, but he told her to keep her distance because he was losing his patience. Laurette encouraged him to act on his desires, which shocked Azrahan. He pushed Laurette onto the couch and asked if he could do anything he wanted. Actually, Laurette only wanted a kiss, but it seemed like Azrahan wanted to devour her. As Azrahan made his move, Laurette hesitated and apologized. Azrahan warned her not to do it again because he might not be able to stop himself next time. Laurette promised to remember his words. A few days after the purification, Laurette invited Azrahan to a date at a bar, but he declined due to his concern about his curse. Azrahan felt sorry for Laurette for having to date a monster like him, but he couldn't bear the thought of letting her go. Laurette reassured him that they could go on a date anywhere, as long as they were together, which made Azrahan happy. Azrahan had to attend a meeting at the palace, and Laurette reminded him that he might be late if he didn't leave soon. Azrahan promised her that he would be back as soon as possible. He had planned to finish his work quickly and have a dinner and a drink and a nice talk with Laurette, but the meeting seemed to drag on with no end in sight. Azrahan grew annoyed and asked the emperor when they were going to end the useless argument. The other participants fell silent, but then Duke Blanche, Laurette's father, scolded him for his rudeness. Azrahan thought of warning Duke Blanche, but he let it go because Duke Blanche was his lover's father. To avoid any commotion, the emperor decided to call it a day since they couldn't come to a conclusion. Azrahan quickly left the meeting room. So, someone was being impatient to have a date with his lover. As Azrahan hurriedly left the meeting, Duke Blanche grumbled to himself. The Duke sitting next to him advised him that he was fortunate Azrahan didn't do something bad to him. However, Duke Blanche insisted that Azrahan was the one being arrogant towards the elders. His companion warned him that if he wanted to save his failing family, he should behave more wisely. This made Duke Blanche feel upset, and he began to blame Laurette for everything that had happened since she left the Blanche household. He even thought that if Laurette were to return and beg to live there again, he would show her mercy. Duh, really, dude? I think you're the one who should beg for her mercy. As soon as Laurette heard that Azrahan had arrived home, she hurried to the front door, but he wasn't there. Halstein informed her that Azrahan was changing his clothes. She was relieved that Azrahan didn't see her running because it wouldn't have looked elegant. However, Azrahan was already behind her and told her that she shouldn't have run just to meet him. The way Azrahan treated her made Laurette think that he must have a lot of dating experience. Azrahan wondered what was on Laurette's mind. Halstein kicked off the show with his bartending skills, leaving Laurette amazed by his talent. He also mentioned that, being the head butler, he needed to have the skill. Rushing out, Halstein told them to have a memorable night. Laurette and Azrahan toasted each other before taking a sip. Azrahan was surprised at how quickly Laurette downed her drink, but she explained that she had a high tolerance. They chatted and enjoyed each other's company. Laurette then brought up Doha, clarifying that he was only a friend and had even helped their relationship. She asked Azrahan to let Doha continue treating her since he was the best at it. Azrahan was displeased at Laurette getting close to another man, but agreed for her health's sake. Laurette was grateful. Suddenly feeling hot, she asked Azrahan to help remove her clothes. Azrahan asked Laurette if she was drunk, but suddenly she pushed him down onto the couch and suggested they continue where they had left off. "Whoa, not too fast, honey." Azrahan was cautious, concerned that Laurette was drunk, but her tender caresses ignited a fire within him. Azrahan told Laurette to get away from him, but she countered with a request. Laurette asked Azrahan to kiss her. Azrahan touched her cheek, thinking that a kiss was all she wanted, and told Laurette to keep her promise. Laurette closed her eyes, but instead of a kiss on the lips, Azrahan planted a kiss on her cheek. Azrahan asked if that satisfied her. Disappointed, Laurette grabbed Azrahan's face and kissed him on the lips. Finally satisfied, Laurette told Azrahan that's what she meant by a kiss. Flustered, Azrahan told her it was enough and pinned her on the couch. He told her not to go too far. Suddenly, Laurette's eyes slowly closed and she fell asleep. Azrahan was left bewildered, sitting by her side in silence. The next morning, Laurette entered Azrahan's workroom to find him looking exhausted. He told her that she had finally woken up. Laurette pretended not to remember anything from the previous night, except for when Azrahan agreed to let Doha continue treating her. As Azrahan thought that Laurette had taken his first kiss but didn't remember it, he forbade her from drinking alcohol with others. Laurette argued that when she drank with others, she never did anything bad. Azrahan appeared jealous upon hearing this, thinking that she might have been drinking with her ex-boyfriend. Meanwhile, Laurette felt that Azrahan was being unfair, assuming that he may have also drunk with many of his ex-girlfriends. "All you guys need is good communication." Halstein announced Doha's arrival, and Azrahan instructed him to show Doha to the living room. Doha was waiting, and Laurette quickly apologized for what happened before. Doha reassured her that there was no need to apologize, but if she still felt that way, Doha told her that she could visit him next time instead. Laurette requested that Doha alter the healing technique, as she had a boyfriend and preferred to minimize physical contact with others. Despite feeling annoyed, Doha agreed. However, Doha expressed discomfort being watched by the servants. Doha suggested they go to the library that day, and Laurette assumed Azrahan would be busy, so it would be fine. Doha believed that Azrahan could only monitor them through his servants and wouldn't join them because he values his honor. However, Azrahan surprised them by saying he would come along, leaving Doha stunned. "Great! That's how you should act, Azrahan." As Azrahan expressed his desire to join Doha and Laurette on their trip to the library, tension filled the air. Doha tried to greet Azrahan but was met with silence. When Laurette asked if Azrahan had been busy with work, he insisted that being with her was his top priority. Oh my! Now he's really good at it! It was awkward inside the carriage, but Laurette hoped that her friend and lover could find common ground. Suddenly, Doha had a sense of foreboding that something bad might happen if he accompanied them. When he learned that they were headed to the Imperial Library, Doha panicked, knowing that being recognized by members of the royal family could spell trouble. He quickly made up an excuse about needing to attend to an important matter at the temple and begged off. Once Doha left, Laurette and Azrahan were left alone in the carriage. Laurette took Azrahan's hand, causing his heart to race. Though he struggled to control himself, Azrahan reminded himself that he was human and not a monster. In the library, Azrahan trailed Laurette closely, which made her think he was adorable. She whispered to Azrahan and asked him to pick a book, which made him flustered by the way she did it. Laurette playfully reminded him that they were in a library and needed to be quiet. She then went off to find a book, and couldn't help but imagine the romantic library scenes like in novels. Laurette tried to reach a book on a high shelf, hoping Azrahan would come to her aid. However, a stranger approached her and offered to help. She declined his offer fiercely and tried once more. But this time Azrahan came to her rescue. Laurette asked him if he had witnessed what happened earlier. Azrahan teased her by asking which part she meant, the way she reached for the book or the way she shooed away the stranger. He admitted to liking her fierce attitude and told her to treat all men like that. Laurette expressed her fear that Azrahan might be scared away by her fierceness. Azrahan reassured her that it wouldn't happen. In fact, if Laurette ran away, he would find her wherever she went. As they were leaving the library, they discussed getting cake when someone called out to Laurette from behind. It was her wicked brother, Rayan. Concerned that Rayan might mistreat her in front of Azrahan, she asked him to go ahead without her, as she needed to have a lengthy chat with her brother. Rayan belittled Laurette, accusing her of clinging to Azrahan after leaving the Blanche household, which he deemed a disgrace to the family. Laurette retorted that Rayan was also bringing shame upon the family. Rayan then told her to return home since she was incapable of doing anything else. But Laurette didn't care and told him to handle family affairs himself. Rayan's anger surged, causing him to strike Laurette in the face in front of others. While thinking what to do with him that wouldn't cause much problem to her, Laurette stood up. She declared that she would end the family lineage and kicked him in the groin. Ouch! Then Laurette went to a healer to get treatment for her bruise. However, since the healer was low-ranked, the treatment was not perfect. Laurette avoided Azrahan, not wanting him to see her in that state, and decided to stroll around. Suddenly, someone tapped her shoulder. It was Madame Sharb, the owner of a boutique. She asked Laurette what she was doing out alone at that hour. Laurette hesitated to answer, but Madame Sharb invited her to the boutique and gave her a gift of new accessories. She suggested that Laurette change her hairstyle to make it look better. Madame Sharb shared with Laurette that many people came to her boutique after a long, tiring day, and she hoped that Laurette could end the day without worrying about anything, and that the next day would be great. Laurette was surprised to learn that Madame Sharb knew who she was, despite never having met her before. Here's some explanation. Madame Sharb had been close to the princess, who had broken off the engagement with Rayan, causing tension between the princess and the Blanche family. This tension prevented Laurette from getting close to the princess and Madame Sharb. However, Laurette expressed that she was no longer a part of the Blanche household and asked Madame Sharb to call her by her first name, Laurette. She was grateful that leaving the Blanche household had led to a new friendship. Back at the Candle Manor, Halstein excitedly announced Laurette's return to everyone in the house, who had been worried about her. Azrahan rushed to check on her, and Laurette apologized for being late, explaining that she had a long chat with Rayan and went to a boutique. However, Azrahan noticed a bruise on Laurette's face and angrily demanded to know who had caused it. Laurette hesitated to reveal the truth, but Azrahan recognized the wound as being from a bare-fisted hit and just had a treatment with a low-ranked healer. Laurette, concerned about Azrahan's potential reaction to the perpetrator, decided to handle the situation herself to avoid wasting any more of their limited time together. Azrahan understood her decision and offered to call a priest to treat her injury properly. In his room, Azrahan made a discreet call to Gerard, the leader of the Shadow Unit, to investigate what had happened to Laurette and the Blanche family. The Altheon Temple was holding its most important meeting of the year, with only the Pope and senior priests in attendance. Doha found the meeting boring, but when a subordinate asked to speak with him, the deputy head became displeased and reminded him that he needed to teach his subordinate proper behavior. Doha used sarcasm to reply, pointing out that even the deputy head was telling him what to do. Despite this, Doha allowed his subordinate to enter and inform him that the Candle House was seeking his assistance in healing Laurette. Doha promptly left the meeting, causing some displeasure among the other priests. When Doha arrived at the Candle House, Laurette greeted him and he noticed the bruise on her face. Doha became angry and demanded to know who was responsible. Laurette was confused about why Doha was angry. While treating her, Doha asked if the bruise was caused by Azrahan, but Laurette denied it. Doha was sure it wasn't Azrahan, because if it was, Laurette would not have survived. He continued to examine her face and wondered who could have done such a thing. Laurette was under the protection of the next pope and the Warmonger, so who would dare harm her? Laurette invited Doha to have a seat. Doha realized that if anything were to happen to Laurette, it would be problematic since she was also the one capable of healing him. He then asked Laurette to lend him her wrist and gave her a sacred bracelet with divine power that could heal her. Laurette was surprised by such a valuable gift, and she thanked him for it. She also apologized for not having anything to offer him, but Doha reassured her that her company was enough. In reality, the bracelet had another purpose. It was designed to monitor Laurette's health and would alert Doha if she was in danger. Meanwhile, Azrahan was reading a dating guidebook when he came across a passage stating that adjusting the pace of physical intimacy was essential. It warned that going too fast could lead to boredom. This idea shocked Azrahan and made him worry that Laurette might become bored with him and want to end their relationship. He became lost in his thoughts, fearing that he would be left by Laurette. The next purification process was carried out in the workroom, as suggested by Laurette, to avoid the story being rated for 18+ if it was done in his bed. Although Laurette was fine with physical intimacy, she wasn't emotionally ready to take things further yet. During the process, Azrahan tried to control his thoughts. As the purification was finished, he thought that he shouldn't be too greedy and risk making Laurette bored with him. Suddenly, Laurette showed him a to-do list and asked if they could cook together. Azrahan pushed her face away because it was too close, but then Laurette kissed his hand, leaving him flustered. The kitchen had already been prepared by Halstein, who also reminded Azrahan about marriage. Laurette asked Azrahan to wear the apron, but he was too shy and declined, saying the size didn't fit him. But Laurette thought it would be cute on him. Azrahan had something on his mind and was thinking about how they should take things slow before Laurette got bored of him, which scared him the most. He spoke up and asked Laurette to take it slow for a bit, and she instantly agreed. But what Laurette was really thinking about was taking it slow in cooking, while Azrahan was focused on physical intimacy. They started cooking together and had fun, even laughing together when Laurette did something silly. As the food was finished, Laurette fed Azrahan and teased him to wipe off the chocolate left on his lips. Laurette playfully licked the chocolate off Azrahan's face, but then had a thought. She realized that their first kiss had happened when she was drunk and wasn't very romantic. So, she decided to create a more romantic moment and left some chocolate on her lips, asking Azrahan to clean it off. However, Azrahan was hesitant and told her it was too much. He had expressed his worry that she might get bored with him. He felt like Laurette wasn't taking his concerns seriously, even felt a bit pathetic for worrying so much. Azrahan then stood up, wiped her lips with a handkerchief, and hurried out of the kitchen, leaving Laurette confused. Again? The next morning, Laurette was determined to have a proper conversation with Azrahan without pushing him away. Azrahan greeted her by calling her wizard instead of her name, which confused her. Laurette found it amusing and teasingly asked if he was mad at her. Azrahan struggled to tell her the truth, fearing that Laurette would be disappointed and leave him. He realized that he should be grateful for Laurette's love and loyalty, but he couldn't keep his feelings to himself any longer. Azrahan explained that Laurette didn't seem to take his request seriously. Perplexed, Laurette asked which request he was referring to. Azrahan mentioned the request he made yesterday to take things slow in their relationship. Laurette was taken aback. She told him that she had thought his request was to take things slow in the kitchen, not in their relationship. Azrahan was embarrassed and tried to run away, but Laurette stopped him. Azrahan asked her to let him go, but she refused. Then Azrahan pretended that his hand was hurt, causing Laurette to release his hand. However, he quickly ran away, feeling embarrassed about the misunderstanding. Laurette couldn't resist teasing Azrahan after discovering he had run away due to embarrassment. As she dropped him off at the gate, she playfully reminded him not to bolt again if he ever felt embarrassed at work. As they walked, Gerard asked Azrahan if he had informed Laurette about their destination. Azrahan replied that he had not felt the need to do so. However, he felt that he should not keep anything from Laurette, so he decided against lying and didn't provide any additional information since Laurette already knew he went to the palace. They opened the door to check on Rayon, who had been locked up inside by them. Azrahan's sharp eyes met Rayon's, who immediately cursed and began shouting. However, Azrahan was quick to silence him with a punch, reminding him of his place. Azrahan was furious upon learning that Rayon had hit Laurette, a girl he himself was hesitant to even touch. After wiping his hand, he made it clear that he had no intention of killing Rayon. Azrahan spared Rayon only because of Laurette, and he wanted him to remember that. In the Candle residence, Laurette and Azrahan were having dinner together, when Laurette suddenly remembered the fact that they hadn't made much progress in their relationship. But time was running out as their dating contract was only for 3 months, and she only had 10 weeks left. She asked Azrahan how slowly they should take things, but he responded that they should take things as slowly as possible. Laurette, feeling frustrated with the slow pace, blurted out that she wanted to take things to the next level with Azarhan soon. This caused the servants to drop a plate in shock. Halstein and the other servants quickly exited the room, realizing the importance of the succession of the duchy. Azarhan nervously asked Laurette what she wanted to do with him. Laurette responded with enthusiasm that she wanted to experience everything with him, but before she could elaborate, Azarhan quickly stuffed a piece of bread into Laurette's mouth to prevent her from talking further as he was already embarrassed. Azarhan then went on to explain that his cursed body made him feel like a monster, and that he found it difficult to be intimate with her. He worried that Laurette would run away after seeing all of that. But Laurette saw it as a motivation to work harder on purifying Azarhan, so he wouldn't have to worry about touching her. When Azarhan heard those words, he felt something indescribable in his heart, like it was about to burst. He wondered if it was love that he was feeling. Laurette laid on her bed while pondering about the curse that she had to purify. Because she was the only one who could cure Azarhan, she wondered who had cursed him. It must have been a powerful wizard with a strong hatred towards him. Laurette reflected on the challenges Azarhan must be facing due to the curse, particularly in their relationship. As she recalled his bashful expressions, she began to worry if she was his first love. This concern troubled Laurette as she had no intention of starting a committed relationship, given her limited time of 3 months. Laurette was determined to ask Halstein about Azarhan the next day. However, while she was trying to sneak up on him, Halstein caught her and asked her what she wanted to know. Laurette informed him that she had a question regarding Azarhan. That made Halstein ecstatic, and he inquired whether Laurette was interested in learning about Azarhan's wealth, power, or the joys of being a duchess. Laurette quickly clarified by asking if Azarhan had been in a relationship before. Halstein realized that he needed to provide a thoughtful answer, considering the importance of the matter. However, he responded by admitting that he had no information regarding Azarhan's romantic history. Noticing it was a stupid question, Laurette then asked permission to leave. While walking back to her chamber, Laurette unexpectedly spotted Azarhan in the hallway and rushed towards him. He immediately caught her and warned her about the dangers of running in the hallway. Laurette then requested a hug from him, but Azarhan refused due to the possibility of being seen by others. Laurette then took Azarhan's hand and they entered a nearby room, but it was so narrow that they could hardly keep a distance between them. Laurette then asked if they could hug there, to which Azarhan slowly moved in for the embrace. But suddenly, Laurette felt something hard down there. Was he wearing a sword? No, he wasn't. Upon realizing that something strange was happening to him, Azarhan abruptly pulled away from Laurette and asked if the hug had been enough. Laurette cheerfully replied that although it was short, she was satisfied. Meanwhile, Azarhan was worried that his sudden reaction might have been noticed by her. Absolutely. Now Laurette was convinced there was nothing wrong with Azarhan's lower body. He was definitely a vigorous young man. Let's put down the tent. Azarhan tried to change the topic, sensing that the tension should be eased. He asked Laurette about the bracelet she had been wearing lately. Laurette revealed that the bracelet was a gift from Doha, but then she quickly realized her mistake as Azarhan might not approve of it. Indeed, now that the atmosphere had shifted, he realized he should get rid of Doha sooner. But then he recalled that the dating guidebook highlights the significance of avoiding jealousy to prevent the lover from getting weary. Laurette was perplexed by Azarhan's expression and assumed that he might have been upset. She explained to him that the bracelet was a gift with divine magic to assist in her recovery. Although Azarhan said he understood, his expression showed otherwise. Still wearing the same expression, Azarhan reassured Laurette that it was okay to exchange gifts between friends. He also suggested that she could spend time with her friend while he was occupied. Laurette was thrilled to hear this and exclaimed that Azarhan was the best. The next day, Azarhan informed Laurette that he had an urgent matter to attend to in the palace, and he needed to leave immediately. As Laurette bid farewell, Azarhan appeared reluctant to leave. Sensing this, Laurette asked if he needed to use the restroom. Azarhan averted his gaze and admitted there was something else. He then surprised Laurette by placing a beautiful accessory in her hair, explaining that it was a gift and it looked lovely on her. It was clear that Azarhan was jealous of the bracelet, but his actions were endearing nonetheless. Suddenly the coachman shouted, reminding Azrahan that he needed to leave for the palace. This surprised and embarrassed both him and Laurette. As Azrahan walked towards the door, he turned back and gave Laurette a hug before quickly leaving with a red face. Doha arrived and immediately noticed the new accessory Laurette was wearing, complimenting her on how pretty it looked. As they began the treatment, Laurette extended an invitation for Doha to join her outside afterwards. Despite Doha's concern for Azrahan, Laurette assured him that it was not a problem, as Azrahan had a lot of trust in her. However, Doha was visibly annoyed upon learning this. It looked like they were having fun. While they were walking around the town, Laurette offered to treat Doha for the day and asked him what he would like to buy. Doha requested the bracelet from their previous outing. Laurette hesitated as the bracelet was inexpensive, but Doha insisted that it was perfect for him and that she had picked out the best one. She ended up buying the bracelet for Doha. Laurette observed that Doha was struggling to fasten the bracelet, and she kindly offered to assist him. It was then that Doha became aware that Laurette had brought along another item, and he inquired about its nature. Laurette revealed that it was a gift for Azrahan. "Oh my Doha, you shouldn't be jealous for someone else's lover. Get a grip." Doha told Laurette that he had heard a rumor that Duke Candle had cut off the arm of Marquis Segreb at the theater because Marquis Segreb had harmed the Duke's partner. Doha asked if the partner was Laurette, and she confirmed it. She was worried that if her parents found out about the rumor, they would take her back by force from Azrahan, and the thought made her look pale. But seeing this, Doha asked if she was okay and told her not to worry. He assured her that she could trust him because she had the most reliable priest at her side and promised to always protect her. But suddenly, the wall near them cracked and fell apart.